All right. 30 years ago, Hurricane Hugo ravaged the southeastern portion of the U.S., especially in the Charleston area, where it took out many buildings, houses, and businesses. Here's a couple pictures. You can see here the wind tore up a lot of these roofs and it's scattered all over the place. And here, this guy has a brand new view of the local highway. But jokes aside, this is a big problem. So how would you fix these? Well, most people would say you need construction, you need carpenters, HVAC crews, and welders. But at that point in time, we didn't have those welders, the HVACs, the carpenters, or the construction crews. So how did they fix the houses, and how could you? Well, very simple answer. You can't. Which is why we, as a future, need to look forward to the need for skilled trades. But how did we get to this certain point in time? 60 years ago, we had a oversaturation of trade school workers, and a lot of their sons went after them as well. So it led to a huge less demand for them. So they would have less. Demand. Crap. What was I saying? They would. Crap, I lost what I was going to say, man. Give me a second. They would lose money and not have as good of a lifestyle. So the other children around 60s, 70s, 80s, they would see them struggling and be like, hey, I don't want to go through that. So they decided to go at that point to the more popular college route, which was starting to expand more. Another point that was being made across was during the 60s was also the civil rights era. A lot of people were concerned that these trade schools were just becoming another point of segregation for racial and socioeconomic reasons. So a lot of people weren't trying to mess with them and fund their potential evil reasonings, which never happened. And if we fast forward to around late 90s, early 2000s, you get to where a lot of people just think it's for people with little ambition for who they want to be and learning challenged. But surprisingly enough, there's a huge worth of trades for the past 10 years since no one's gone into it. And also, we just need people to go in general so we can make businesses in the buildings for them. It's one of the fastest growing careers in the field, and you have 8,500 trade schools that you could choose from across the whole of the U.S. With 110 jobs that are already active and more that you can take right now, industry's worth about $16 billion. But another thing too is the lack of debt. And here's some stats I will show you. Overall, you will reach an average of $37,000 in average total debt, which includes even from those cheap community colleges to all the way high up to Ivy Leagues is what they're called, which a $132,000 average total cost for a 4-year public state, as opposed to a $33,000 average cost, which is almost a $100,000 difference, and then a $10,000 average total debt cost, which $3,000, that's what I spent to go to Greenville Tech. So keep that in mind. So would you get more worth out of going to a trade school? Well, yes. 27% of trade school grads earn more money from their trades because of the higher demand. And, 21% are more likely to work in their field of study because, once again, higher demand is going to lead to you actually be able to get to a job, which is a huge problem with college goers these days is a lot of them, famous high degree college, they're working at daggum Starbucks right now. Not to mention 4% higher employment rate. Once again, that same higher demand. And $65,000 isn't too bad when I'm about to show you this next slide. The job opportunities, your average college incomes are around $30,000 to $120,000, which is good. But then if you can move your thoughts to over here, you get that $30,000. But if you're good enough, you can get to $200,000 worth of income. And that doesn't even mention any specifics. Like if you go into welding, which is what I want to do, you can go to the bottom of the ocean and weld. Not that often either, and get 10 times that amount of money. Same for all of these, including electrical. You can earn even more than just $200,000. versus any of these, which all of these you'll end up immaculating tons of debts. Like master's degree, that's 6 years worth of debt right there, which judging by a master's degree, you're going to a high class college, which is going to be, once again, very expensive. And in business degrees is one of the most common degrees because a lot of people that take them are people who don't really want to go to college because they want to do something in college. They want to do it because they see everyone else going to college and they think they want to do it too. But what usually ends up happening is they just coast in from class to class, doing all right, or even worse, they just party the whole time. And then when they get out of college, they don't know what they want to do. And then they're stuck in a bad cycle that a lot of people are stuck in. But don't just take my word for it. Take this guy. This guy is Mike Rowe. He used to do 2 different shows, Dirty Jobs and Somebody's Gotta Do It. Both of these went off of people who would do their jobs, which, you know, could be dirty, could be pretty messy, but they love it. It's how they roll, and that's what they want to do. Not to mention, we would not have any active infrastructure if we didn't have them. So that's probably an important thing, too. And now, these 2 shows have been going for a long time, about 10 years now. So now he's working on a scholarship programs for any students that maybe want to do these things that he used to cast for these shows. I mean, and they're usually wild things, all ambition worth. And the past few years, he does about $1 million worth for scholarships for these students. What is the biblical significance of this, though? It's actually pretty simple. Isaiah 45:12 says, I made the earth and created man on it. It was my hands that stretched out the heavens, and I commanded all their hosts. Basically, a simple way for us to interpret that for this subject is God created us as man, so we should create things with our own hands so we can give honor and glory to God ourselves. And then, finally, what does this mean for you guys? Some of you, you do know what you want to do. I'm happy for you. That's the main thing you want to get from this. Do what you're happy doing. That's what I'm trying to do. But another thing you can do as well is look into some of these trades. Try and figure out what's best for you. Apprenticeships and interns are very good. I know a couple of y'all have already done internships already, and you figured out what you do want to do, maybe what you don't want to do. Things can change. And even if you do want to go to a college or a trade school and you think you want to do something, maybe in a year or 2, you may not end up wanting to do it. You can swap out majors. That's fine. So, in the end of the day, that's all you want to do. Just do what you do best. Thank you.
We got a couple of panelists. I want to open it up to them first. You have any questions or comments for Wyatt?
All right. Okay. What go into cultural classes? I think. Like, can you speak to that a little bit? Like the resentment, or why do you think? Like, you did a great job speaking to previous generations and why people look down on those going into trades. And it seems as though, at least financially, you did a really great job. First of all, holistically, you did a great job.
Thank you.
You did a great job. Like, one of the things that surprised me was like the financial distinction. That is the caricature of what everyone tends to think about the trades. It's not factually true. So why do you think there's a continued slant bias against people going into trades?
Well, a lot of it is the same thing I said. A lot of people just think it's just for people who don't really care about what's going on with their lives and they'll just move through and do what's easy. That's another thing, too. People think a lot of these are very easy to do, which is not the case. A, they're very dirty. B, they're also very dangerous, a couple of these jobs. Like electricians, if you ask Rob Thomas, he almost daggum killed me 2 years ago when we were working together. So it's dangerous. There's no question about it. But it's worth it if you enjoy it, which is why, I mean, for every job, it should be something you enjoy. Like I know Mr. Satfield enjoys his job. Ain't that right?
Most days.
Well, that's everyone. That's the main point of the project, though. It's just showing you should do what you enjoy most. And for me, that comes from welding and blacksmithing.
Yeah, I like what, so I'll echo what Pastor Nathan's saying. Like, it seems like for a lot of people the misconception is folks that do these types of jobs. They're not as high society, maybe even not as educated, but even when it really comes down to it, these particular jobs take a high degree of skill, a high degree of education, which leads me to, I got one comment, or I got several comments on one question, but one of which I like how you mentioned, like, so many of these jobs are different because it's not that we just want people doing these things, we have to have people doing these things. These particular skilled trades and so on. And two, so like you say, welding, so here's the question, and then, so two questions. One, what are some other trades that come to mind, like other popular trades that you go to trade school and learn how to do these types of things? Two, how do those skills, the things that you learn how to do and trades that you learn how to do, how do they follow you through life? I used to work fast food as well, but what I learned in those days have not followed me through. I don't have to do those things anymore, right? Do these types of jobs that you're talking about, do they have the ability to follow you through life that will continue to benefit you, even like you said, so maybe you don't do this for the rest of your life, but even if you didn't, what can follow you?
Well, I think a lot can follow you with the majority of these jobs. Maybe not HVAC because you need more of a team and more specific materials, but it's possible. But here, let me go back to all the jobs that I brought up. Here we go. For electrical, you may not be able to do as advanced stuff as you would do on your job, but just changing a light bulb or changing out one of these lights is usually good enough for the majority of people. For IT, just knowing how a normal computer works is usually very valuable, especially going on into the future. And plumbing, that's as simple, toilets, sinks, all that kind of stuff. So, and then welding, there's not much you can do. You can do like a side business at the house, but you can't do much else with that, to be honest. And construction, understanding how any house or building's made, and then you can tell when something's awry or something needs to be fixed.
And as someone who owns a home, like these are all things, like, y'all have the good fortune of not knowing much about any of this stuff, but I guarantee you, your dads and moms do, because everything on this list, there are things that aren't a problem until they are. Y'all know what I mean when I say that?
And then you have to fix it.
And then it's the only problem, right? They're not a problem until they are, and then it's the only thing you get to do that. Like, that's what you're doing that day. When you've got a plumbing problem, I don't care what you wanted to do with your day, that's what you're doing with your day, right? And so, there's so much of this. Another question. Oh, sorry. Real quick. Another cool thing about all this trade stuff is that so many of them have on-the-job training, right?
Yes, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, how does that typically work when you go get the job? It's not like your education ends there. Like, what's the possibilities there?
Well, I'll say for me as an example, I've been to Greenville Tech for a semester now, and I might be able to get a welding certificate. But I could very easily go to a job site after getting that welding degree and having no idea what's really going on. Like, they might be doing something very specific. Like, for example, I got asked by a buddy of mine if I wanted to work in a military power plant with them. I had to turn it down because I'm not certified yet. But that's a good example because I would have to be welding a lot of chassis and car parts together. I don't really know how that stuff works. I would have to be there and have someone help explain that to me.
Right.
It was that kind of on-site training job.
Right.
And then we use electrician as another example. You can't really go through the ceiling and just tie up a bunch of knots with the wires together. That's how you blow yourself and the fuse box up.
Right.
Which is why I've had Rob always help me out whenever I was with him.
Right. But in the meantime, it's like you're on that job, you're learning how to do things, but you're getting paid in the meantime. It's not like you have to take off, learn how to do it, and then come back. All that stuff tends to pay for itself. Pastor Nathan's got something else?
Yeah, okay, it's outside Christians. I don't know if it's spelled or not. Like, there's conversations that rotate around through the higher echelons of, are we a college prep school? Are we interested in right now we're a college prep school. If you could get 2 minutes with people in the room whose voices make the call, what would you say to them?
We need a couple of classes, and to be honest, we already have the materials to do that. You go to the garage right over there. I've found 2 welding kits and an entire wood shop that would do anything that you need them to do. And they can easily do apprenticeships or a quick little elective class under Rob for any electrician work. Same for Rob Sawtell as well. It would be very easy to make a switch. I mean, maybe you might need to change a lock or two, but that's about it.
Why? What would be the motivation? Because right now, I think it's safe to say the perception is if parents may perceive if we say we're more than just a college prep school, we've compromised or we've lowered standards. What would you say to that?
I wouldn't really understand how we would have lowered standards. If we still have all these classes, if we just added classes, wouldn't that be raising standards? Because we've broadened our area of expertise.
Seems to make sense. So,
Both sides.
Thank you.
Classmates, y'all got any questions for what?
Ben?
So do you do you need a college education to get like a certification to do this stuff? Because my older brother Nate, I guess you call it apprenticeship. He works under this guy. His name is Brian. He does HVAC and like plumbing and all this stuff in like apartments. So Nate just learned how to do it, and he's been going around. He's basically got his own gig going now. And he helps people like do all this stuff, and he gets paid for it.
Having a degree would improve your chances of getting a good job, but you don't necessarily need a degree, especially if he's running his own business, like you said. He can very easily do what he needs to do, and as long as he does a good job, there ain't no problem with it.
And that's the thing about these trade schools, like what he was mentioning, for a fraction of the cost of an actual college degree and a fraction of the time. We're talking like 2 years max on a lot of this stuff to be HVAC certified, to be welding certified, to get all these certifications. And yeah, it's a fraction of the effort with a multiple of the payoff.
Coop.
What are you planning on doing when you get out of high school, like for a career?
For a career, my primary plan was to get a welding certification and then go down to another trade school in Charleston and get a degree in blacksmithing. I would then come up to around the Landrum area where I have a couple of people looking at hiring me. And then possibly take over the business. I don't know. That's an in-progress thought. Will?
What things can you like realistically do with like welding and blacksmithing? Like, needed something fixed or something.
For the majority of things, you can fix or make anything metal-based as long as you have the right type of torch and know how intense it needs to be for what metal you're using. Like, I mean, even if it's just like little small things. I made like a bottle tree for my parents the other day, and it's not anything huge or extravagant, but it's just little small things. As for blacksmithing, a lot of hooks and, in some cases, even self-defense weapons, if you're good enough. I'm not, but you can.
I make a sword.
I made a knife.
You did a knife.
Yeah, I can't bring it. I asked him. He wouldn't let me.
What's that show called? Forged in Fire?
Yes. My dad does.
Dude, that show looks really good. You like make a sword.
Cooper, you got a question?
What made you want to do welding? Was it like a parent or?
My grandfather. These are actually his boots right here, 40 years old. All right, Gelson.
Do you ever see a reality where there's a decrease in demand for jobs like this because of, technology that's, like, now we have so many, like, cars just being made by robots in a factory. So it's like, do you ever see AI or whatever, all this technology taking over jobs like this, and we just see a decrease in demand where we don't need jobs like
Yes,
workers for
yes
success?
and no, because like you said, for the cars, that's all automated. That's easy comprehension of blueprints for an AI, and they can easily just bring the parts, zap here, zap there, and then they're on their way. But the difference between a good many of these, and then, yeah, difference for a couple of these is like welding, blacksmithing, even construction. That's considered an art in a lot of people's eyes, and AI cannot replicate that. I know there's AI generated arts. I can't remember what they're called, but making it work in a real world setting is a lot different than just making a quick picture. Now, AI might be able to help get towards that goal, but there will still need to be someone there to know how to do it.
And plumbing, if your pipes freeze.
And plumbing too.
Yeah.
I don't think a robot's gonna work well with plumbing.
Analyze that. What about some of the stuff your school is doing with historical restoration? AI is not gonna be able
Oh,
to
yeah, that's true.
reproduce what was made back in 1800s.
All right, let me go another lecture here. For those who don't know, I'm going to a technical college/trade school in Charleston where they work on historical restoration, which was made because of Hurricane Hugo, by the way. And what they do is they'll they'll try and replicate and rebuild any either aged out buildings, homes, even gravestones. I'd probably find a couple pictures if I wanted to. But
Like the art.
yeah, the art part. Because if you ever go to Charleston, I can't remember which street it is, but there's a street of just full of houses. They're all like, fancy 1800 style. They worked on probably every single one of those.
Rainbow Row?
Maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you ever seen, okay, now we're just talking about TV shows, but, I don't know what streaming service it's on, it's called The Craftsman. And it's a guy out in California, and so he's rebuilding, and so the oldest thing they got out there is like, it's still early 1800s, but it's like all the Victorian whatever. And what's wild about it is, it's not just that nobody's making stuff this like in terms of like trim and corbels and all this other stuff that you just don't see on houses that much these days. Not only is nobody making those anymore, they're not making the tools that made those things anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, he's got all these lathes that nobody really, and machines that you might be able to replicate with modern machines, but not as well, right? Like it's not gonna make as good of a cut. It's not gonna make as smooth of a cut, and it's mostly woodworking that this guy's doing. But it's fascinating that it's not just the product that nobody does anymore. They don't even make the tools to make those things anymore. So like there's something, and there's a big field of opportunity for that stuff as well. Cooper, question?
Well, it's also like machines break down and they need people to fix it. They can't just fix it. I mean, they could.
Right.
but they-
That's what I was thinking about Kelson's question, where it's like, yeah, you get all these robots in a factory, it seems like you're gonna need even more people maintaining those things to.
All I'm saying, man. Electricians.
All right, anything else for Wyatt?
Hubbard.
So do you think, like, in the future with, like, colleges, people graduating and not really, like, learning anything in a sense, like, do you think these, like, manual labor jobs could, like, actually become so, like, needed that like, college almost, like, fades out in a way?
No, what needs to happen is a healthy balance between the two. Because we do need people to be the businesses, the doctors, the teachers. But we still need all these people so these people can have a building to work in that's mostly functionable. I mean, even right here, we only have one electrician, which it's still pretty good, but we could use another one potentially. Same thing for all of these. I mean, majority of buildings you walk through, you can see just issues with all of them. It's because we don't have enough of these guys able to work it. So all these guys are really expensive to hire.
So, like, everyone goes, like, I guess, like, the stigma is, like, everyone should go to college. Do you think that could change if we, like, were a little more open to going to a trade school?
I'd say it's already changing a little bit. Past 10 to 5 years, people have started to realize it a bit more. It's becoming more and more popular. But we're still leaning more on the college end. It needs to be balanced out just a little bit more. Hey, Matt.
No, I love this, man. And like, this is for everyone. Like, some of you, there is a pressure, and I don't think it's necessarily from teachers. I think oftentimes the pressure comes from parents. And Steve, if my kid went to college, and you know your own heart, you know staring at a computer screen for the rest of your life. And I think what I really appreciate about this is there's not necessarily a design of human beings to spend 40 hours a week staring at a computer screen. Something that we've elevated to the point of like you've arrived. If you can stay in your office in your own house, not have any human interaction, stare at your screen and get paid.
'Cause that's what's happening a lot with business degrees, because there's such a surplus of them. That's where we've gotten to that point where they don't know what to do with all these people, so they just put them in front of a screen and get them to do their quarterly reports, and that's all they do for the rest of their lives.
Appreciate it, man.
Anything else for Wyatt?